Connie received a call from Callum. He was asking for help. When she arrived at his house and entered, she heard the sound of his phone coming from a room. She followed the sound and found Callum's body hanging from above. He was one of the many victims of the serial killer that was going around on a killing spree. The killer was present at the funeral of everyone he had killed, watching, as their loved ones wept for them. He wore a hood and looked through the window the torture he had unfolded. DCI Oddette was in charge of the case. Such crime called for the urgent action. She instructed her team to find links between the victims to draw out a pattern so that she could read the mind of the ruthless psychopath and save the next victim. From the evidence, it was clear that the killer was on this path from a long period of time. His first victim was killed 11 years ago and Callum was the latest. He was equipped with time, money and a never-ending storage to put away the bodies of the people he had murdered. Oddette searched for a connection to help her trace a pattern. Over in the prison cell, Luther received an anonymous letter. In the letter, there was a frequency for a radio station. Luther plugged it in and heard Callum screaming in pain. He could also hear the killer laughing at his pain. The killer was also taunting Luther, making fun of him for not being able to solve the case. In the audio he gave Luther a clue. He said that he had met Luther at the bus stop and had offered him a mint, which Luther had accepted. But Luther had no memory of that ever happening. Luther wanted to find the killer once and for all. He immediately contacted the DCI and told her about the audio. She told him that the victim's family was also sent the same tape. Luther thought of the tapes as some sort of clue. He was determined if they analyzed the tape they could find a way to get to the killer. But Oddette was not willing to listen to him. Luther was a dirty cop who was rotting in prison and she did not trust him. Luther decided to take help from his prison inmates. He created a planned diversion to escape from prison and finally was successful. His first clue was the radio transmitter. Oddette contacted Detective Martin, who had worked with Luther in the past. He went through Luther's stuff and found the letter and immediately knew that Luther was on his way to the radio station. And he was right. Luther was visiting the tattoo parlor near the station, sure he would find something of help there. He met Derek, the owner of the place. Derek got scared and tried to run away as Luther was questioning him. He held him down and threatened to tattoo his eye, but Derek was too scared to tell the truth. Derek was actually being blackmailed by the killer. The killer had a video of Derek doing inappropriate acts and was threatening Derek to post it online and destroy his life. He had no choice but to run the audio on channel. Derek gave Luther the phone that the killer used to contact him. The killer had an entire army of people working for him. They could access any camera and had dirt on almost everyone. The killer found the most vulnerable people and made them his targets. Luther contacted Martin and asked him to trace the number that he had gotten from Derek. Although Martin helped him, but he was playing as a double agent, he gave the police Luther's location too. The number was traced to Piccadilly Square. Luther got there and called the number. The killer picked up. He threatened to kill a civilian whom he was already holding hostage. The police were also waiting for both Luther and the killer. As they were about to catch them, a series of suicides started taking place which led to chaos. The killer had planned this madness a long time ago. However, when he spotted Luther, he started running and managed to get to an underground station. Luther was after him and almost hit him, but a young cop who was following them both was hurt. Luther did not was to leave the man dying stop to tend to him. Meanwhile the killer escaped. Luther had figured out that the killer was targeting, torturing and killing people who chose death over having their shameful secrets exposed. The killer was named Robey. He had his assistant set up a site to invite people to vote on how to torture the victim. The method with most votes would be chosen as the victim's ultimate horror fate. Robey had now kidnapped Oddette's daughter and was demanding Luther in return of her daughter. Oddette had no choice but to agree. She decided to meet Luther at a bar where she told him Robey's history. Robey had serious charges of inappropriate behavior against, but he had managed to get away from getting convicted. He was married for a while, but that ended with the house being burned down and the wife disappearing. Luther and Oddette visited Robey's wife at the facility. She was now a burnt victim whom Robey had tried to kill. She gave them the location of Robey's bungalow, where he kept his victims. They followed the bungalow's location in the snow-covered area. As they neared the bungalow, Oddette could hear her daughter's voice. She followed the voice and saw her hanging from the ceiling. This completely broke her down and she blamed Luther for the death of her daughter. Luther separated himself and went towards the basement following a red light. There he was attacked by Robey. When he opened his eyes, he found himself tied with cameras around him. He was going to be the first victim of Robey's live torture red room. Soon, Oddette was also pushed into the room. She could see her daughter through the glass window who was alive and well. Robey instructed Oddette to stab Luther, as it was what the audience voted. When the devil instructed Luther to hurt Oddette, he refused and started playing mind games with Robey. He warned that their location was being tracked by the police and that the police were coming after all the individuals in the audience too. Robey got scared and ran. He pushed the activation button on the red room that would burn all the people he had trapped for torture. Luther ran after him. Oddette and her daughter managed to save themselves and others from the fire while it consumed and killed Robey's assistant. Luther and Robey were fighting. They both drowned in the ice-cold freezing water with no escape. Thankfully, the police had arrived on the scene and they rescued Luther in time. After they all were safe, Oddette reminded Luther that he could not run away from the law now, and he would have to be arrested. He did not resist and to his surprise, woke up in a safe house instead of the prison cell. Turns out the chief of MI6 had other plans and wanted to use Luther for more projects, and this is where the movie ends. I hope you enjoyed this explanation of the movie Luther, The Fallen Son. To watch the explanation of other latest movies, subscribe and thank you for watching.